This is the third time that I've tried filming this video, and I feel like even years later, this story is incredibly emotional to talk about, and there's a part of me that believes I will never do it justice, but I want to do my best to share it here with you because I feel like it's really important. My name is Chrysalis, and this is the Chrysalis House YouTube channel. This is a personal story video, so thank you so much for being here. Keeping things short and simple, or as short and simple as this can be, when I was 21 years old, I started questioning who I was on an existential level for the first time. And the conclusion I came to at that time in my life was, I am this horrible, awful, evil narcissist that will always and forever have this terrible impact on the world around me no matter what I do. And so, in order to protect the people in my life and those around me, I have to isolate myself from them. And during that isolation, I have to do my best to become the best version of me, because maybe, somewhere deep down, there is a possibility that even though I'm this giant fucking narcissist, that I can heal. I remember Googling and looking for solutions and seeing so many people say it's impossible for narcissistic people to change. And I remember feeling even more hopeless at the time. I was terrified that I was what most people considered the worst kind of person. And it just enforced this belief that I needed to keep myself isolated. Even though I was telling myself the story that I'm this absolutely terrible fucking person and I can't be around anybody, I remember Googling if it was possible to heal narcissism spiritually. I remember finding this kind of hole in the wall website that gave a technique that I have shared with you guys on Instagram, and I'll share again here, which is sit with yourself for 60 minutes, track every single thought in your head, write it down afterwards, and go through it and see the patterns that are coming up in your consciousness. And so I did, and it did not take me long to see that a lot of the shit that was replaying in my head came from childhood. And it was a really clear mirror to me at the time that I had a lot of unhealed trauma, which was another thing that this website said. It told me that narcissism came from all of this trauma, and that if a narcissist really wanted to heal, they needed to make it their mission to heal this trauma. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do that. And so I religiously meditated, I journaled, I gardened, I barely watched any TV, I did yoga, I walked, I ate a vegan diet, and did my very best to become deeper and deeper and deeper and more and more and more aware of my traumas and feel all of those feelings through. For a while, I noticed this was decently beneficial in the sense of so much awareness gained. Oh my goodness, I feel like I time traveled almost in that, because I was living alone, not really having contact with many people aside from my coworkers, very minimally, and just so focused on myself. It was incredible, the amount of awareness that I gained and the amount of time I spent with myself. But at some point, all of these stories that I was telling myself about how bad of a person I was really started to get to me. It wasn't long before I started planning to end my own life. And for months prior, I was paying off my credit card. I was making sure that if I were to succeed, that there wouldn't be any sort of repercussion left on my family. And so I finally came to decide how I was going to do it. And I remember taking the steps. I'm not going to get into details, because if you're where I used to be, you will find the details extremely activating. And even though you can do a lot of things with those activated feelings, this isn't the space for me to activate you more when this is already an emotional conversation. So just know that I took the steps to attempt to end my own life, and I was laying in my bed in this apartment, and I was feeling so many feelings. My adoptive mom, who was my best friend when she was alive, passed away when I was 15. And I had her urn at the time in my bedroom on my bedside table. So when I was laying in bed, I started getting scared of feeling what I had done take effect. And so I grabbed her urn. I put it on my stomach, I believe, and I was just like laying in my bed with it. And I closed my eyes and I was breathing and trying to relax. And I remember my body feeling as though if it were a switchboard, like where you see breakers and switches and whatnot, like the first one shut off. And I felt my body like sink energetically, but an inch or a foot or whatever it was. And I was like very keen of the fact that my body was starting to shut down. And my passed on mother came through and talked to me for the first time. She was very urgent and she said, "You need to call 911. I remember being confused, amazed, shocked, and in awe. And knowing it was her, but being like, what the fuck is happening? And I said to her, I just did all of this to end my own life. Like, what do you mean? And she told me, it is not your time to die. Pick up the phone and call them now, or you will die. And so I did. It was just this compelling feeling of, I can't say no to my mom right now. Like, it feels cosmic. I just had this knowing that she was telling me I can't die because there's so much more for me to do. And so I called 911 and I felt like just this dog, but with a tail between its legs, being like, hey, I tried to end my own life. Can you come save me from myself, basically? And so they did. And that was a very interesting, intense process of ridding my body of what I had done to it to attempt to end my current existence. And I spent the next, I want to say 3 or 4 days in the hospital that the ambulance I called took me to. I had a couple friends come visit me, but again, mostly I was alone. And this was some of the most transformative spiritual time in my life thus far. I remember one night in particular, I was in this room, I was alone, aside from this woman who was basically just on life support in the bed next to me. And I was like bawling my eyes out for hours and hours, like heart-wrenching fucking cries, like just processing all the feelings of not wanting to be alive, not wanting to be a horrible person. But apparently I'm not meant to die. So if I'm going to be alive, I might as well make it a life I love. And that was the big change from this experience. Was at 21 years old, my guiding mission, my guiding light became, I never want to feel motivated to do something like this ever again. I'm not meant to. For whatever reason, I don't fully know, but I'm clearly not meant to. And so if I didn't want to be alive before, I better make my life one that I want to be alive for now. And that was massive. It took my life in a completely different direction. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about, where is joy? Where is happiness? Where is my fulfillment? Where do I feel my soul lit on fire? What gives me so much meaning and purpose that I don't ever want to leave this world? What makes me feel like being alive? I just had this very keen awareness that everything mattered a lot, and that settling for not liking something meant taking one step closer to feeling like ending my existence again. For whatever reason, it became really clear to me that it was up to me and it was in my control to like my life. Now, for some years, I did play the victim to mental illnesses and all of that. I struggled and suffered with it a lot, and I understand that the words like I played the victim might really rub you the wrong way, because you might feel like a victim to your mental illness right now. And if that is the case, I see you, because I really have been there. I just want you to know that even though you have been living the way that you have been living up until now, you do not have to keep making the same decisions that you've made in your life up until this point. What I learned from my attempt to end my own life is that it is ultimately up to me to make a life that I don't want to escape from, that I don't want to not be living. Even though it took me up until 29 to really get confronted with and feel through the feelings of being a narcissist and being a bad person. And frankly, this experience of being online is still assisting me in overcoming that. I've continued to create a life that I love more and more and more, and want to live more and more and more. I remember learning about near-death experiences and how people just completely changes people afterwards, and everybody's experience is different. Everybody's is uniquely their own. But what I can tell you about mine is that I changed totally and entirely afterwards. All of a sudden, it wasn't, I'm just going to work any job. It was, I need to find a job. That means everything. It was, I'm going to come out of the closet as gay, because what the hell am I waiting for? It was, I'm going to get a cat because I've always wanted a cat and I've never gotten a cat. I would love a cat. It was, I keep seeing paintings in my mind's eye, so I'm going to start painting, and then falling in love with painting. It was so much. It was, I'm going to take a chance on doing all of these things I've always wanted to do. And that started when I was 21. And I've just built my capacity to take more and more risks and create more and more of the life I love over the years. I'm about half a year into being 29, and I just got over the hump of creating my first song publicly, which is something I've wanted to do since I was a little kid. The more that I live this way, the more life just gets better and better. And I look at younger me and go, you have no idea why you need to still be alive, but you do. You do. So good on you for listening. Good on you for crying and feeling your feelings. And good on you for never stopping searching for the things that have you feeling like you didn't settle. I hope this helped somebody. If I can give you any piece of advice, it is to recognize that depression is a symptom. Wanting to end your life is a symptom. If you don't want to be here on this planet, I can almost guarantee you that it's not that you don't actually want to be here. It's that you don't want to be living the life that you're currently living. Of course, I didn't want to be living the life I was living. I was constantly berating myself. I was constantly treating myself like the scum of the earth, worst person that could ever possibly exist, not letting myself have friends or family or joy or happiness. Of course, I didn't want to be there. But the second I started making different decisions to change my life changed, and so did my feelings about it. My name is Chrysalis. Thank you for being here. Like I said, I hope you got something from this, and I'll see you in the next one.